So far in Genshin's story, especially in the recent 2.6 Archon quest, we've been given the impression that Celestia destroyed the prosperous nation of Khaenri'ah without any provocation. Hot people become hilichurls, and all Khaenri'ahs, according to Dainsleif, are forced to bear an incredibly torturous curse for centuries on end. But what if Celestia actually had a reason? I'm your leify Minsleif, and today we're going to dive into the theory that Khaenri'ah may be more dangerous than we previously thought. In order to cover this theory, we're going to go over Khaenri'ah's possible history, its political agenda, and of course we can't have a video centered around Khaenri'ah without speculating reasons for its fall. As a disclaimer, I'm a big fan of Khaenri'ah characters, if my name isn't already abundantly clear, and the canon details of this nation are one of my favorites to study. So no hate to the Khaenri'ahs, I just love to bring a new perspective to the multifaceted conflicts we encounter in Genshin Impact. In your time of playing, you may have noticed the striking similarities between the ruins we encounter. No, I don't necessarily think Hoyoverse is trying to cut costs by reusing assets, but the recycled architecture is to signal that the ruins are probably all from the same civilization. And what is this civilization, you may ask? Before Sun and Moon, a chronicle we obtained from Enconomia details the earliest history of Teyvat. In this chronicle, we learn that Fanis, aka the Primordial One, was the progenitor god that defeated the 7 Dragon Lords and prepared the land for the arrival of humans. The first civilizations that came from this event I'll refer to as the Primordial civilizations. Examples are Enconomia, Salvindignir, the civilization on top of Dragonspine, the ruins in the Chasm, and the ruins in Surumi Island. If the Primogems embedded in the eyes of the Khaenri'ahs we've seen so far isn't enough to convince you, well, Khaenri'ah and these primordial civilizations have destruction by Celestia in common at least. We know that Khaenri'ah was destroyed during the recent Cataclysm, a worldwide event that transpired 500 years ago, but we can actually trace Khaenri'ah's existence back to around the same time that these primordial civilizations were still around. The scribe's box from Dragonspine says that during the destruction of Salvindignir via the Skyfrost Nail from Celestia, Khaenri'ah was still a fairly new civilization. Salvindignir may have predated the Archon War, meaning both it and Khaenri'ah may have existed for a guesstimate of 2,000 to 2,700 years ago. In Enconomia, we also learned that Khaenri'ah royal envoys attempted to steal the Before Sun and Moon chronicle, the day that Enconomia was about to rise to the surface of the Inazuman Seas to become Watatsumi Island, an event that also occurred after the Archon War. Circling back to the copy-paste ruins that we visit, in the 2.6 Requiem of Echoing Depths, Paimon asked Dainsleif if the upside-down civilization we see in the Chasm is Khaenri'ah ruins. Dainsleif suggests that the civilization might actually be older than Khaenri'ah, but he also suggests that the architecture here does somewhat resemble that of Khaenri'ah.
At least, it would if it were the other way up.
We also get another hint in the symbols we often see in these ruins. For this segment, I recruited the help of my friend, the symbol expert. The language of the primordial civilization is usually identifiable by these following symbols. For lack of a better term, I'll be referring to the script as Primordial script. In the 1.4 We Will Be Reunited Archon quest, Traveler, Paimon, and Dainsleif investigate a talisman connected to an Abyss Herald. Paimon again asks if the script is written in the language of Khaenri'ah. At first glance, the alleged Khaenri'ah script doesn't look familiar, but Symbol Expert had come to the realization that this Khaenri'ah script is actually Primordial script, in half and upside down. If this evidence is indeed Khaenri'ah script, it seems to be derivative of Primordial script. Something eerie to note is that this seems to be a nod towards a popular theory of Teyvat being flipped upside down. Khaenri'ah script is Primordial script upside down, Khaenri'ah architecture is Primordial architecture but upside down, but that's a whole other theory video for another day. Back to the topic at hand, what does Khaenri'ah's ties to primordial civilizations have to do with them possibly being evil? For this segment, we're going to take a look at Khaenri'ah as an individual political identity, its government structure, and its allusions to real life. Khaenri'ah is evidently a kingdom. The last ruling dynasty of Khaenri'ah was the Eclipse dynasty. In the 2.8 Hidden Strife event, we learned that the name of the last king was King Irmin. Irminsul? We'll table that idea for now. The king had sages who advised him according to the Mocking Mass Circlet from the Pale Flame artifact set, which tells the story of Piero, one of the Khaenri'ah sages, now the #1 Fatui Harbinger. In the We Will Be Reunited Archon quest, field tillers, according to Dainsleif, were made with the purpose of tilling the land with steel and blood. The line "steel and blood" could be a literary allusion to the famous Iron and Blood speech by Otto von Bismarck, the man who believed in the unification of the German states and urged the parliament to use their army and blood they'll spill in war if necessary to achieve unification. The field tillers and all the robotic monstrosities we face in Khaenri'ah are war machines. Khaenri'ah had and still has war as part of their agenda. 500 years later, Kaya and to an extent Albedo still have concerns about Khaenri'ah starting a war with Mondstadt. Note that the name Khaenri'ah is Arabic for wind betrayers. This leads me to believe that Khaenri'ah originally had plans to reclaim the land that belonged to the primordial civilizations, unification if you will. If Khaenri'ah was a remnant of the primordial civilization, and if those civilizations were destroyed by Celestia, it seems natural for Khaenri'ah to want to reclaim what they believe was wrongfully taken from them. Now that we've identified Khaenri'ah's possible motives, was Khaenri'ah's imperialism and possible conquering of other lands by force enough for Celestia to want to shut them down? The reasons for their fall might be more sinister than that. Here we get into even more speculative territory. Please equip the circlet from the tinfoil artifact set, keep your hands and feet in the cart at all times, cause this is going to be a ride. Before Sun and Moon mentions that Phanis, aka the Primordial One, also had a war with the Second Throne of the Heavens. I personally subscribe to the theory that the Second Throne of the Heavens is current Celestia, and Phanis did not actually win the war against the second one. The people of Enconomia only assumed that Phanis won, and this record is what was recorded in their chronicles. Wei, whom I like to call the Archon of Lore, does a great video on this, and I highly suggest you check out Wei's channel. This theory makes sense for now because according to current evidence, Phanis seem to be a rather benevolent deity, certainly not one capable of destroying the civilizations they'd worked hard to bring up. The destruction of Khaenri'ah seemed to have been so much more severe than the destruction of the previous civilizations. Abyssal monsters threatened every land as far as Inazuma, and a horrible curse of immortal pain was placed on the Khaenri'ahs. Khaenri'ahs are usually referred to as the sinners, but what sin did they actually commit? The answer might be hidden within Dainsleif's monologue about Khaenri'ah during the Travails trailer. For this section, I recruited the help of our Kaya expert, who pointed me towards the overhuman theory, introduced by German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Simply put, the overhuman is the master of his own fate, and this political ideology outright rejects the idea of divine rule, or divinity in general. Nietzsche introduced this concept of the last human beings, that is, the people who fail to self-cultivate enough and become an overhuman, as being like stock animals in a way. They live believing they control themselves or that they rule the world, but the truth is that they are complacent to some fictional higher powers' rule and are regressions of evolutionary theory. Yikes. This could be used to arguably interpret the overhuman-human dynamic as that of Khaenri'ahs and Teyvadians. Dainsleif seems contemptuous of the Teyvadians who are obliviously happy to live in an eternal dream under celestial rule, while the Khaenri'ahs are the opposite, living outside Celestia's jurisdiction and are aware of the truth of the world. A recent example of this overhuman theory in action could be with Reindotir, an alchemist from Khaenri'ah who initiated the Primordial Human Project and created Albedo as an example of a perfect primordial human, an overhuman. This brings me to the next wild theory. Dainsleif might be harboring the soul of a god. In the Byakyokoku collection we can obtain in Enconomia, the Serpent's Heart subtext recounts that Enconomia worshipped another god, alongside Orobashi, and this god's name? Ouroboros. Dainsleif was confirmed playable in a Bilibili livestream on September 27, 2020, where his constellation is listed as none other than Snake Ring, aka Ouroboros. Is Dainsleif the result of Khaenri'ah alchemists transmuting the soul of a god into a human body? Could it be why the stars in Dainsleif's character art line up perfectly with the moons in the alchemy symbol? Will Dainsleif really commit to the shonen trope that you will become what you hate the most? The concept of transmuting gods is not actually foreign to Khaenri'ah, it seems, as the Abyss Order sought to mechanize the body of Osial during the We Will Be Reunited Archon quest. This act of weaponizing a god, a sin if you will, might have been a contributing factor to the arrogation of mankind. I'm your leafy lore streamer Minsleif, and I do lore discussions on Twitch 3 to 4 times a week. Please leave a like and a follow, and I'll see you on the next video.